Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the Smoking Rubber Podcast. I'm your host, Arun Sharma.
And I'm Destria.
And on today's episode, we'll be doing something similar as last week. Last week, we talked about Lamborghini versus Ferrari. And this week is much of the same. However, we'll be talking about the two of their most iconic cars of all time. Of course, the Lamborghini Countach versus the Ferrari Testarossa. Now, let's get started with the Countach. The first ever Countach concept was showed off at the Geneva Auto Show in 1971. Mainly to show off Lamborghini's brand new factory at the time, an assembly line. But it officially made its assembly debut in 1974. The first gen, also known as the LP400, used a mid-engine 3.9-liter V12, which naturally aspirated, which made 370 horsepower. It was originally planned to use a 5-liter engine, however, which would have made 440 horsepower. However, due to production reasons, it was switched to the 3.9, and this was paired with a 5-speed manual. Then we moved to so we had the 400. Moving a couple of years later, we had in 1978, we had the 400S, which sort of kind of changed how the Countach looked to a more of the iconic silhouette that we now know. Yeah. So main things to note is the introduction of the Pirelli P7 tires, which were the widest ever given to a car ever, which gave the Countach even better traction and handling, as well as an optional spoiler you can give to the Countach, which essentially became iconic with it. Yeah. I think you can't have a Countach without the spoiler, even though early models didn't have it.
Seeing it with the spoiler on it.
Yeah.
I think the tires were they were 345s.
Yes, they were.
That is back in 1974?
Yeah.
That's huge.
They were biggest tires ever given to a production car at the time, at least.
Yeah, that's insane.
But even though the exterior was bigger, the engine that was used was detuned to make only 350 horsepower. But I think the 400S probably was one of the more iconic models of the Countach due to its appearance in the Cannonball Run. If we can bring back that image.
I think it was
that one. That is
with the front spoiler on
with the front spoiler. Of course, I vividly remember as a kid watching Cannonball Run, the intro of that movie for the famous Countach chase scene with the police. Of course, this one's a sort of special race car with the front spoiler and whatnot, but certainly has become iconic and certainly helped shape the legacy of the Countach. So now moving over to 1982, the Countach again had another sort of change. This time being given a 5.2-liter engine, which now made 555 horsepower. This model became as the LP 5000 QV, with QV being short for 4-valve in Italian. I'm not even trying to pronounce the Italian version. Yeah. But essentially 4-valve because the engine had a 4-valve per cylinder system. And we finally moved to 1988 with the 25th anniversary edition, probably the most famous Countach out there. Of course, this is one of the colorways you can get, the white with the red trim, probably one of the more famous.
Was that the specific to that year, like the red interior, or was that?
I think this was, I think it was introduced with the QV version.
Okay. And which one was that?
That one, that one also is the QV.
Oh, nice.
No, that is that was the 500S model, which came before in 1982. So you had the 500S, which then became which then later on we got the QV.
Nice.
And then of course now we move on to the 25th, which the one with the red car, there we go. The red car, essentially, it's pretty much had the same sort of build as the QV, but the main difference was the exterior. This time now being redesigned by Pagani, which I think nowadays most people know about their supercars. Nice. But back in the day, they were a design house who worked with a lot of famous cars.
The only differences I really see are like the side skirts and
Yeah, that's the big.
bottom bit for the bumper. And
Yeah,
then the big air
course.
vents on the side.
yeah. It was given, of course, new body panels for ventilation and cooling, as well as carbon fiber bumpers. And in 19, so that was up until 1990. So in 1990, the Countach was discontinued and replaced with the Diablo, which essentially very similar to the Countach.
1990. Wow, that's a long production run for the
Yeah.
Countach. It's really long.
Yeah, so it's one of the famous. And I'll be personal. I think that I actually prefer the Diablo over the Countach. I think just thinking more of a realistic terms, if I actually had these cars.
Yeah.
The Diablo essentially was very similar to the Countach. It used the V12, but it had more quality of life features that most modern cars have, like adjustable seats and power steering and whatnot. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I actually prefer how the Diablo looks. I find the more, I guess, the bigger frame of it.
It's the 90s. It's the 90s. The more bubbly,
Rounded
edges. Yeah.
Look, I think as a car, it probably is more like drivable than probably a Countach.
Oh yeah, because the Countach I hear is like one of the worst cars to live with.
Yeah, in terms of actually driving it,
yeah,
the Countach is not really a great car to drive.
The window only goes down a little bit. The like to back it up, you have to open the door to really see over the hill because you can't even.
Because the back window is basically non-existent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it goes and all starting it up and all that like headache.
Yeah.
But Countach didn't die just yet, because in 2022, Lamborghini did bring back the Countach in name for its 50th anniversary. Sort of I guess a little bit of controversy how it looked, but
I mean, Lamborghini's known to make some pretty unique, like limited edition runs.
Yeah,
like
this was a limited edition.
Sesto Elemento, the Reviton, but this one looks pretty cool for what it is.
This one used a 6.5 liter V12, so keeping in line with all the V12s of the previous Countaches. But now it was paired with a electric motor, combining to make 802 horsepower with a 7-speed automatic. So a little different, now being a hybrid this time.
Oh, I didn't know it was a hybrid.
Yeah, cool. I'm gonna be honest. Like, we're talking about a bit more of its design. I originally, when I first saw it, I wasn't really a big fan of it. But then looking back at the previous models, like especially the first generation Countach, it definitely has that like more of that style of the original compared to like what we think of like the QV and the
no spoiler
25. Yeah, no spoiler. A little bit more like a little more angular, like slimmer. But that's it for the Countach. Now going over the Ferrari Testarossa coming. So the first version, known as the Testarossa, came in 1985. Similar, it was a V. They used a 12-cylinder engine. It was actually this time it's a flat 12 rather than a V12. Mid-engine but rear-wheel drive. And the first generation made up to 190 horsepower. Then we go to the so we had that. We also had the Spider, which was a convertible, essentially just a convertible version of the Testarossa.
I think that was one of the rarest variants, right?
Yeah, it was a rare sort of limited, very hard to find limited edition. Then we move on to essentially we're moving a little bit more into the 90s now. So the original Testarossa from 85 to 92. So in 92, as a response to the Diablo, Ferrari put out the 512 TR, which actually was an updated Testarossa. Still using a 12, now making 428 horsepower and 362 pound-feet of torque. I feel like it's interesting in terms of the colorways, because Testarossa, if you didn't know, essentially means redhead in Italian.
Oh, cool.
But in terms of at least the 512, whenever I see one in public, I always seem to find it in this black colorway, which I think you either have to get either the red because name fitting, or that, of course, the blackout colorway. It just feels very fitting, especially for the time, the 90s.
Yeah. But I'm just looking at prices of them. They don't really sell as much as the Countachs do.
No, I think
They're pretty reasonable for like a retro supercar.
retro, especially a
pretty-
Ferrari.
Yeah, like
I think just in the end, the Countach is probably the more popular car,
that's
more
true.
iconic than the Testarossa, even though
The Testarossa would be a lot easier to live with.
certainly, actually, I think it was a Top Gear episode where they actually they tried to do a drag race with the Countach and the
Yeah.
Testarossa. And it was really funny to remember part because I think it was the way with the transmission or how they built essentially the gear shafts and whatnot,
Yeah, I remember that episode.
where they couldn't actually get off the they had to
Solid start.
solid start off the drag race, so they had to do a rolling start instead.
Yeah.
So and it just goes for how these cars sort of aged into nowadays.
True.
But finally, we had the F512 M, which the M stand for modified. This one had boosted up to a 440 horsepower. Also was much lighter than the previous generation. But I think most notably, looking at the car, the absence of pop-up headlights. This was pretty much a facelift of the previous Testarossa.
Well, how many of those did they make?
We can tell about the 512, around 500, about 500 or so units produced of that generation. So kind of not as extensive of a history as the Countach, but Ferrari did actually, similar to the Countach, they did bring back the name Testarossa for a new sort of hypercar.
Oh yeah, their SP series, I think. Right?
Yes, the SP car.
Special
So
limited edition ones.
very limited edition. Unique design.
Yeah.
This one, unlike the previous generations, all used a flat 12. This one is a twin turbo V8 4-liter, but also like the 2022 Countach is also a hybrid. So it has a electric engine in it, which makes I believe about 880 horsepower. So plenty of horsepower.
Nice.
Because a very unique design, sort of much more of like what like a modern Ferrari hypercar would look like.
Yeah, they kind of like the I don't know if it's the SF90. Is that the latest replacement for the LaFerrari?
Yes, the SF90, very similar to that with a super flat, like low profile, aerodynamic design to it. Of course, super limited because it's essentially pretty much a concept to what Ferrari does nowadays. I think it's sort of unique. I would say it doesn't really call back to the previous Testarossa, like the Countach, which had had those design cues from the previous generations.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, Destry, if you could own either one of these, a Ferrari, Countach, Diablo, or Testarossa, which one would you choose?
The Murcielago.
Murcielago.
Yeah, just the LP640, definitely one of my favorite cars. Just yellow or yellow-green,
the
blue, whatever, any color.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the thing with these old supercars. Though they are very cool to look like and to learn about, they aren't actually that great to own and to drive around nowadays.
Yeah.
Certainly with the advent of like stuff like basic stuff on like fully roll down windows, so like air conditioning. A lot of these cars didn't have those built in. So they weren't really that, like in terms of daily, imagine daily driving this thing, probably not the most fun thing to do.
Yeah, if you go through a drive-through with the Countach, you'd have to like have the door open in order to
basically.
take your food. Because you couldn't
Basically.
even get to like a small bag in. That's an
Basically.
insane thing.
What
would you take though?
I think I just mentioned it prior, but I think I would take the Diablo simply just because it's out of the three. I think it still have that like sort of iconic 80s, 90s design, but still having some of those, quality of life, amenities in your car that doesn't really make it as uncomfortable to drive with.
I think I heard like a unique fact was like with the SV compared to a regular Diablo spec, is that I think the SVU cost less at some point because it didn't come spec'd with like air conditioning.
Yeah,
I heard that was a thing. So like you could get the faster model or the more performance oriented model for less because it didn't come with the amenities
Yeah.
that a regular one would come with.
yeah. So I guess sort of back then those weren't as common to
Yeah.
have in those cars.
But
as in
that's a cool sort of marketing way to like
you
sell
could
something.
you could certainly as more of a track focused car,
Yeah.
rather than a daily driver.
Also, which years of the Diablo would you the pop-up headlights or the ones with the
Ooh,
share the
that's-
headlights with the 300ZX?
Yeah. Ooh, that's
I mean, look at that. You just go to Nissan, you get the order the headlights.
that's true. That's true. You could
Share the headlights
those
with the Nissan.
that's true. But that's a tough. I think I'm gonna do pop-ups. But I'll be honest. I think the way I like the Diablo is with the pop-ups down. Just give it that more, still having that more sleek design cue.
Yeah.
I'm just a big fan of how the Diablo looks and pretty much how the Countach inspired it.
Yeah, the V12 series is
Of course, V12. Yes,
yeah.
of course. Yeah. But if there's anything else, would you like to add or?
No, I don't think I.
Well, I think one more
There's
thing
more
with the
stuff?
Countach is that, I think one thing is instead of its colorways, often we brought up the white one with the red interior. I think another popular one was the red colorway. Also, yellow was a really nice one. I think red and yellow. Funny enough, if you know Transformers, there are two Countaches in that show that are like brothers to each other, and one of them has like these super big intakes on the back of its car, so it's like a modified Countach. And I always
This
It's
is we're talking like one of the older Transformers
Yeah.
series, one of the shows,
Yeah.
cartoons. Oh, okay.
so I always sort of had that idea of what a sort of a super how the Countach should sort of influence all the 80s and 90s culture.
True. What is it? Wolf of Wall Street. I think the Countach
Yeah.
was made a pretty popular appearance in it.
Yeah,
Just the excess, sort of. They say that
sort of being rich and whatnot.
or drug users spec.
I think that's with that out of the way. That is our end of the show. Thank you for watching the Smoking Rumor podcast. As always, I'm your host, Aryan Sharma,
And I'm Destriat.
and we'll see you on the track.